Trying to figure out what it's like to be a delegate for the Nobel Summit? Then stick around as I answer some questions that you may have about it. I'll be posting the questions on the screen, but feel free to look away from the video while I answer them. The first question I want to pose is, why did I want to be a delegate? A delegate is someone who is a representative of whatever group they're in. In this case, I would be a representative of my former university, Quinnipiac University. Being a delegate can be considered a high honor because it means out of all the people who applied to be the face of the group, you were chosen, which is most likely because of your aligning interests with whatever event you're attending, and also your good reputation, which means that you won't be a liability to the group. I decided to take part in this because I thought I had what it takes to be the best physical representation for Quinnipiac. I was in good academic standing, and I was interested in what the Nobel Summit was all about. However, I never actually heard about the summit until one day I impulsively attended a meeting on campus that explained that the summit was an annual event that invited people from all around the world to discuss global issues along with some Nobel Peace Prize winners. This brings me to my next question, which is, what was the application process like? It was necessary to attend one of my university's meetings about the Nobel Summit, because that was the only way that I had the ability to share my school email with the people running the delegation. So first I gave them my email. Then I had to wait for them to contact me, and when they did, they asked me to select the best time for me to have an interview with them, in person and on campus. I don't feel right talking about my interview experience without mentioning the mistakes that went into it. I totally botched things up at first by arriving to the interview location a whole day after my scheduled date. This is something I have never done in my life, but at the time I was going through some personal issues that made me totally forget that I had something planned on the original date. But if you're ever in a situation like this, there's still a chance that you could be on the delegation. As you can see, I did it, and I think this is what helped me. First off, the interviewers recognized that I made an honest mistake because I was prepared to talk with them in my most professional outfit and resume in hand. It wasn't like I had no intentions on ever arriving, so that gave me some brownie points. Plus, when I explained my reasoning for showing up late, I made things short and sweet. I'm going through, insert problem here, and move on. Do not make it sound like you're hoping for a pity party with, "Oh, it was so terrible. I couldn't sleep for days. I look so stupid." People, especially interviewers, do not want to hear how hard your life is. They want to know that you are mature enough to manage that part of your life and move forward so that you can be your best self for them. Other than that, I just answered the questions I was given, but I didn't do it in a way where I showed that I was embarrassed for my tardiness, even though I totally was. I wanted to bow my head, apologize a million times, and shed some tears, but that wasn't going to get me nowhere. I knew I was better than that, so I kept my head up high and made eye contact as I spoke. Instead of apologizing, I transferred my embarrassment into humor and made some light jokes throughout the interview, and I put on the best smile I could muster. To some people, that may be seen as fake, but staying strong in a time when you're feeling weak can benefit you in the long run. I got the delegate position despite being a day late after all. How many people can say that? Just don't stay strong all the time. When you're not faced with a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to travel to another country and represent your school, then you could cry. The third question is, did you travel with a group? With the short answer being yes. The long answer, there was a little over 20 delegates that attended the 2019 Nobel Summit in September, which was located in Mérida, Mexico. The delegates were made up of students and alumni, with me being an alumni at this point because I graduated. And this isn't including the professors that were in charge of the group, so there was a lot of us. It was easiest if we traveled as a group, and that was done by having all of the students at Quinnipiac go on a bus at around 3 in the morning to travel to New York's JFK International Airport. I wasn't a part of the bus ride since I no longer lived on campus, so I went to the airport a little later because I lived closer to it. When we all met up at the airport, we got checked in, went through security, and waited over an hour for boarding, as one would normally do, but in this case with a bunch of people. Which leads into the next question. Do you always have to be with your group? By the time I arrived in Mérida and got to my hotel, I didn't have to be. There were invitations to do so, like, hey, a bunch of us are going to Walmart, come downstairs in 5 minutes to join. But I personally never took them up on the offer, and that's fine. Don't ever feel bad about doing what you want to do if you're in this position. You earned this trip, and paid for it, so you do what makes you happy. When the Nobel Summit actually begins, you don't need to be with your group the whole time either. Perhaps you'll have to join them on the walk to the location, but besides that, you're free to do whatever you want. It was difficult to understand this at first, being that I'm someone who doesn't like breaking rules. So when I would go out on my own adventures around the building, it made me feel wrong. Like any minute someone was going to punish me for going far away. But that never happened. It's highly encouraged by the professors that you venture outside of your group and meet other delegates. I made some new connections with students who studied in places like Oregon, Hawaii, and in Mexico. You could also potentially meet with some Nobel Prize winners, like I did with Liberian peace activist Lema Jabawi. Even though you come to the Nobel Summit with your delegation, one of the best things you could do for yourself is meet and network with new people. But I did have a delicious Mexican dinner with my delegation the first night in Merida. That was mandatory, but so worth it. The fifth question is, do I need to know Spanish to attend the summit? Every single Nobel Summit has taken place in an entirely new location, and they're not always in a Spanish country either. Mexico hosted a Nobel Summit in 2019, but next year another place will. Maybe New York or Tokyo. I'm saying all of this because knowing Spanish isn't a requirement to attend the summit. Some of the Nobel Peace Prize winners don't know Spanish themselves, so it would be unfair to exclude passionate people from attending this event because they're not fluent in a language. However, since there are winners from different parts of the world, we did hear from people who spoke Spanish, English, French, and so on. So to take away from anyone being lost in the discussion, people could get a translation device within the building, but you had to give the provider a form of identification to assure that you won't run away with the device. Passports, driver's licenses, and school IDs all qualify as forms of identification. Needless to say, these came in handy throughout the day. The sixth question is, will you get in trouble if you don't attend workshops? During the Nobel Summit, you're able to attend any workshops you want, which focuses on different sorts of global issues. For example, some of the ones I chose talked about how someone could become a change maker, how to build bridges across intercultural and interpersonal differences, and how to be responsible with your social media. From what I've witnessed, it can be really easy to not attend workshops. Since we have free reign, you could just say you attended the workshops, but really be sleeping in your own hotel room the whole day. I did say earlier that since it's your trip, you shouldn't feel bad for anything you want to do, but I wouldn't suggest to skip too many workshops. This is the whole purpose of being at the Nobel Summit in the first place, to learn and network. So by not attending these activities, you're only going to sabotage your own success. I don't think people will catch on to you skipping these events, but it would be a personal disservice to you if you don't follow through with what you were responsible to accomplish. But say you did complete all of your workshops, as you should, then what do you do? Depending on what workshops you attend, you could be expected to be done as early as 4 p.m., excluding the final day of the summit, where you'll mostly be taking part in the final day celebration. And when all of that is over, you don't have any direction on what you could do. So, what should you do with your time? This can vary depending on where you're located, but here's what I decided to do, in no particular order. I explored the town for some souvenirs. I took a walk around my hotel, which was near a lot of fancy restaurants and stores. You can go to your hotel's gym or pool area and relax with your friends, or even take a nap if you had a particularly hard day. Some people from my group also went out late at night to dance or spend time with their new friends. You can't go wrong with what you do. Just always stay safe by having your phone charged or being in public areas where no one can easily hurt you. The last question I'm going to pose is that if you do end up going to the Nobel Summit, will you be on TV? I say it depends on where you're at. You can't guarantee to be on television because there's so many people in attendance for this event, but maybe you'll get spotted by a camera. There were thousands of camera people, so there is a possibility that they may capture you. Personally, I've never seen myself roaming around the internet yet, so if you're worried about being seen, don't worry, because I think you're more likely not to be noticed in such a huge crowd.
If you do want pictures of yourself at the Nobel Summit, your best bet is to just take as many selfies as you can, or ask a friend to take the photo for you. That's all I'm going to answer for this video. Hopefully that helped in giving you a better idea of what to expect if you someday attend the Nobel Summit. If you want to see a summary of my time in Mexico, check out my video, My Experience at the Nobel Summit as a Youth Delegate. Thank you for sticking around.